in church because it's supposed to be a house of like-mindedness.
Supposedly.
And if you go into a house and don't have like-mindedness, maybe you need to change the house you go to. But that's your decision. But God's trying to get you to think like He thinks.
That's it.
And when you think like He thinks, then you walk like He walks, you talk like He talks, and guess what? You experience what He experiences.
Yes, yes.
And when you think like He thinks, then He's able to say, okay, I can trust you with this, let me give you this. I can trust you with this, let me give you this.
Yes. So true.
So He has to change the way we think. And then He begins to change our actions. Once He changes our heart, once He changes our minds, our actions automatically fall in line. That's why being fully committed is a decision and then an action. Once you make the decision, your actions fall right in line. So He changes my heart, He changes my mind, and then those two together change my actions. Too many people go to church and they're trying to change your actions. You don't need to wear this, you don't need to do that, you don't need to go here, you don't need to do that. All that may be true, but let me allow the Lord to change your heart and your mind, and I won't have to tell you where you don't need to go. I won't have to tell you what you don't need to wear. I don't have to tell you what kind of game you don't need to hang out with.
That's it.
All I got to do is keep on preaching the word, and you'll see it for yourself and see I don't need to hang with this one. Because until you make the decision, you ain't going to change anyway.
That's it. That's it. That's it, Pastor.
So I'm just beating a dead horse. You don't need to do this. You don't need to do that. You don't need to do this. And the more I'm beating that horse, the more you get rebellious. But if I allow God to change your heart, and I allow God to change your mind, and I keep preaching the word so it'll change your thinking, you'll change your action. And I asked you, what you said you're going with so-and-so. You said, well, I just feel like I'm desiring to go there. Because God will change your actions. But the actions cannot be changed until our hearts are changed, and then our minds are changed. But let me warn you of this. When you make the commitment, there are enemies coming to change your commitment. There are things that are going to try to cause you to renege on the decision to be fully committed to God. We've dealt with some of those things already as far as different messages, but let me just hit some of them. Some of you have been through them. Church hurt, misunderstanding, people, frustration, too much church time and not enough phone time. What you mean, Elder? You're in church, but you're not spending time with God. Because church ain't necessarily spending time with God. I'm there on Tuesday, I'm there on Wednesday, I'm there. Yeah, I understand you're there a whole lot, but how much time are you spending with God?
That's true.
Because sometimes God ain't there when we're there. Oh, Jesus.
Very true.
And the more you get committed about making your decision to be fully committed to God, the more things are going to come up. And it looked like as soon as we were about, as a church, about to hit this March Madness, as soon as we're about to hit this second gear where God's going to do something with us, here comes some hurt. Trying to take us out. And hurt comes from places you did not think it was coming from. Hurt comes close. And I was telling my wife, we should have expected because the devil can't really hurt us until he hits something close. So we should look for it. I'm looking for that way, but we should look for it. Because the enemy is going to try to cause you to go back on your commitment. How's he going to try to? See, you may not make the decision to go back, but you just stop working. Because you're too hurt to work. So he hasn't caused you to go back, but he's caused you to stop. Church hurt, frustration, misunderstanding, and people. Oh God. People.
Stay right there.
Who think they have good intentions, but don't know they're kicking against the decision that you have already made to do what God has called you to do. People will try to tell you, who sometimes trying to tell you, just not trying to let you get hurt, just not trying to let you get set up for this, but you don't understand. This thing ain't between me and you. This thing is between me and God. And I have made this decision to God. So although I love your opinion and you have given me good opinion and advice before, I have to do what God has called me to do. Because if I don't do what God calls me to do, He's not going to come after you. He's not going to ask me whose advice did I ask. He's just going to want to know, what did I tell you to do? And so when you make your decision, you're going to have all these things trying to cause you to renege on the decision you made to God. And so what do I do when I have all these things coming against me and I've made a decision to stay committed to God? I got to run to worship. I got to run to worship. Because worship will clear your mind. Worship will refortify your decision. Worship will let you see people in a different light. And although you'll say, yeah, you're okay, you're fine, but I gotta do this. Because worship has no motives. Worship has no hidden agendas. Worship just wants to bring you closer to God. And worship just doesn't happen in church. Worship happens at home, in your private time, in the time that you spend with God, in the time that you pray, in the time that you read your word. That's worship too. And God will deal with you in your worship. But when things are acting crazy and you know you made the right decision in your spirit, but everything around you is saying you made the wrong decision, this is what you need to do. Run to worship. And in worship, God will let you know whether they're right or whether they're wrong. And in worship, God will confirm to you, yes, He told you to do this. Yes, He told you to do that. And in worship, they may not change, your outside circle may not change their opinion, but when you get in worship, you'll know that you know that you know that you know what God has called you and told you to do. Worship clears everything up. That's why the enemy tries to keep you out of worship, trying to keep you out of church, trying to keep you out of your word, trying to keep you out of prayer time. You want to do it in the morning, you always run, you're running late, the alarm clock didn't go off. Don't have time to read, don't have time to do, I'm running to work, I'm trying to do this, the kids got this, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. Because they're trying to keep you out of worship. Because if he keep you out of worship, he can keep your mind cluttered and other people can have the wrong influence on you. But worship clears up that. Worship brings a resolution that can nothing else bring to you. You got to run to worship. You don't want God to be a spectator. You want Him to be your partner. And when you run to worship, when you allow Him to change your heart, to change your mind, which will change your actions, and you stay in worship with Him, whether it's in church or your own quiet time, then He will clear things out. I heard people say, I just don't know what to do. I don't know what God is saying. I just can't. I'm trying to figure out how you run into worship. Because God is not an author of confusion. And when you run to worship, He clears things up. When you run to worship, He'll let you see it more clearly. And you tell people, I have no disrespect for you. And I appreciate your opinion. But this is what God is calling me to do. And this is what I got to do. Because worship will refortify. The change in your heart, the change in your mind, the change in your actions. When nobody else around you agrees with what you're doing.